Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is Andy235, and I'm just going to kind of go through and highlight. This is 2024 video on how to get everything set up and ready for texturing, and then how to export your textures out into Maya again and apply those textures. So I'm going to go fairly rapidly on this. So when you have everything UV'd, you're probably going to have smaller pieces. What you want to do is select everything and combine it. Now we don't need to keep it combined. We just need it combined when we go and export it out into Substance Painter. So I'll take you through the process. So I'm assuming you have all your UVs laid out for all the pieces that you want to basically show that maybe this is plastic, that's metal, so on and so forth. Each one of these will be a material. Okay, so that's how I wanted to lay it out. And just like your clothes, just imagine this may be your body or your face, your head, and then your body's in a different layer. Your hair, if it's in a different layer, but I usually tend to have the hair have its own layer, have its own Udem tile, and just by itself. And there's a reason for that, because I'm going to probably use transparency maps. I want it to look more realistic. I do hair cards. You guys may have used Vroid, so you could put that in here if you want your textures. But if you want realistic hair, and you want to use the transparency map to do that, you have to have it has to have its own standard UV tile. Okay, you probably won't use Udem tiles. You'll probably just use one standard tile. Okay, so I'm just going to go through Udem tiles for the body and the face and all the accessories. So you put all your accessories in here too as well. You do have a choice of like this object. I've got quite a few Udem tiles already. I'm using 14. So you might want to do the shirt separately. You might want to do the pants separately and bring those in separately into Substance Painter. You can. I choose to do hair separately, and the rest of the body and clothes can be all in one map. That's just easier for me. Whatever you end up doing, you do need to make sure that you combine it together before you export it out. So if you have a character and you have all these Udem tiles, make sure that they are combined together as one piece. So just select everything, just marquee select everything, and go to mesh combine, and that'll get everything together. You can also go in here under polymodeling and delete history. You want to delete history on everything. Okay, so the next step is to just double check your UVs and make sure nothing is overlapping or touching. This can cause all kinds of problems, and I can see that's overlapping, so I'm just going to take this, right click and go to UV shell, and just move that maybe up into this shell here, just for purposes to keep things moving. And I'm just double checking everything. If you do have things touching, Substance Painter is going to have a problem with it, so just double check everything. All right, so no overlapping UVs, they can't touch each other, and they can't touch the borders or go over the borders. Okay, so next thing you're going to do is you're going to make sure this object is in object mode. So click on this guy up here, or right click and go to select. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead, now that the UVs are laid out, you have to count. So there's 10 across and 4 across. So you got 10 across, then 2, 1, 2 up, and then 4 across. So that's 14 altogether. So this is how we set it up. We go into our screenshot, or snapshot, I mean. We tell it where we want it to go. Okay, so you click on that and you tell it you want it to go into your source images folder. Okay, you want it to be PNG. Okay, And I don't know what resolution you want. If you have a character, you probably want to do 4096. Since this is a smaller prop, I'm going to do 2048 by 2048, but something large like a shirt or pants or whatever will have 4096. So you choose. And in here, the U is how many are across. We've got 14. And how many up? We've got 2. So that's vertical. U is horizontal. And that's basically it. If this is green, then you can click on apply and close. It'll take a while to write all these maps. There's going to be 14 of them, so it's going to take a while. So make sure this is correct though. All right, so get your Unum tiles correct. If you don't, then you're going to have kind of some problems. All right, so when you're done with that, I don't need to do it because I've already done it. So apply and close. And then, of course, you're done with this, and then you want to save your project. So go File, Save Scene As, and save your project out, okay, as an MB file. So I'm going to turn this off. You're done. So you're ready to bring it into Substance Painter. Okay, so you'll have to go to File, select the object, go to Export Selection, and you want to save this out as an OBJ. So rotate, scroll down, and save that as an OBJ export. If you don't see it, you'll need to go into Windows, Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and you're going to have to find it in here. Load, you can basically load it, auto load all the way down. Okay, and that should load it up. Once you're done, you can go to File, Export Selection. Of course, you'll find OBJ in here somewhere near the bottom. Click on OBJ Export, Export Selection, and place it where you need it. Okay. All right, so I can go in here, and it looks like I've already done that already. I've got headphones in here, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm just going to put headphones, headphones new. And TX. That just kind of tells me, well, let me do this. UV underscore TX. Okay. So I'm exporting this out in that file folder. So I'll be able to find it, and I put new on there, so it's going to be fairly a new file. Should be able to see that okay. And the next thing you want to do is you want to go into Substance Painter, open that up. And this is the tricky part. I think the students get this wrong probably 100% of the time. They forget doing one little thing. So I'm going to go to File and New. And in here, we're going to change this to PBR Metallic Roughness. This is really important to continue that template all the way through. Your resolution, whatever you decide you want to do, I'm going to do 2040 by 2048. You're going to select your object, and it's going to go all over the place. You're going to have to tell it where to go. I've got mine set to my computer. There we go, and just highlight that. The one you're going to go into, click on open. Oh, I need to go up a little farther. So let's go into scenes. And headphones new, there it is. So I'm going to click on that and open. Okay, so it's got it selected. It's not going to open it yet. We got the resolution, and here's the tricky part. A lot of people don't realize you have to have use UV tile workflow. And you also have to have this one, not this one, but you need convert UV tiles into individual texture sets, legacy. That's super important. And if things go wrong, it's because of that probably. So I'm going to click on OK. And there are the headphones. And if I want to, I can hold the Shift key down and my right mouse button and move the light around so I can see kind of what I'm doing. Okay. Now I'm not going to go through the whole process of texturing this, but I will talk to you about how this is laid out to texture. So I'm going to move this under over to the right, upper right, texture set list. I'm going to move this down. And as you can see, this is important. You can see that I've got 14 UV shells, 1 through 14. You do not want to rename these. You want to keep them just the way they are. Please, guys, don't rename your stuff or it will not work. You have to let Painter name it the way it needs to name it so Maya can see it, okay? Please do not put your textures in another folder. It won't find them. Please do not rename your file names. Please do not put them in folders. Okay? So those are things that I got to stress very heavily. Otherwise, this will not work. Okay? So don't change anything here. You're going to texture. You're going to click on these things. And this kind of tells you can turn the old eyeball on and off to see what that texture affects. Okay. All right. So you'll just go through here, and there's a couple things you can do if you want to use Smart Materials and kind of make things look really interesting. Smart Materials are the way to go. Like if you want to show edge wear and all that stuff. So I'll just drop a couple textures on here real quick so you can see what's going on. So let me see. This is the outside part. So let's do that first. The only way this is going to work is if I actually go in there and bake maps. That way the Smart Materials will work. Okay, so I'm going to go and bake maps. So let's go to let's see, where is that? They keep changing this thing. Let's see, bake mesh. So mode bake mesh maps, and there you go. So it shows all our texture set. That's our texture set list, 1 through 14, and I'll show you what to click on here. So we don't need world space normals. We don't need an ID. We do want ambient occlusion, curvature, position, and thickness. Those are the ones that are going to give us some really cool information that we can use Smart Materials. So I'm going to keep those on. And then up here, you don't have to change anything. But we want to do this. We want to use the low poly mesh as a high poly mesh. That way we can bake our maps. Frontal distance doesn't matter. So we'll just leave that set up. And then that's it. Just click on Bake Select Textures, and it's going to give you all the information you need to use the Smart Materials, which is kind of cool and fun. And I'll show you how that works real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time texturing this. You would probably want to spend some time making sure that it looks exactly what you want it to look like. I'm just going to throw textures on there, and so we can get through this process as fast as possible. I might even just show you how to do it once and pause it and get this thing textured as fast as possible. It's going to look kind of goofy, may not look that good, but you know, at least I'll get you through the process. So it may take a while for all this. I've got 14 maps. It's got to go through them. That's actually pretty fast. And down here on the right hand side at the bottom, go to return to painting mode. So everything's done now. The cool thing is that you can see we've got some darker areas. That's pretty cool because that's ambient occlusion. It adds a really nice like shading onto it, which is cool. Okay, so they look a little different. They look a little more defined. Okay, not crazy about this back here, but I probably can fix that up in Maya. So I'm not going to worry too much. All right, so now we can go to Smart Materials, which is a lot more fun. Smart Materials gives you some really cool options, okay? First thing I want to do is I'm going to probably select materials. Again, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I'm just going to do a search on leather, okay? Oops, spelled it wrong. Leather. There we go. So we got some leather here. And you can just you can hover over something and it kind of gives you that look that you want, okay? Just find something that looks good, whatever you want, and you can drag and drop it right onto the object, okay? All right, so a lot of these Smart Materials gives you kind of a weathered look, which is fine. In this instance, it doesn't really matter. And that's cool. You can go to your properties here, open this up, and you can kind of start looking at how you can change these things, okay? So you can go in here and make changes any way you want to. Let me do something that's a little more new. There we go. That looks a little more new. Okay. And you can just go from there. Let's see, black leather. Let's maybe add black leather to the inside parts. There we go. All right, what we got going on in here? So let's add that black to that part right there. There we go. So that looks good. And then I'm going to continue on with the rest of it. So I'll come back. I'm going to pause the video and come back, and I'll see you then. Okay, this is what I got so far. It's just really quick texturing. But here's the thing, you can hit the tab key and kind of get real close and see it. And what I would do is hold the shift key down on the right mouse button and move the light around. Just hold both of those buttons down. You can see that I can move the light around in here to see how it really looks. And if you like how it looks, then you're ready to save it out. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit the tab key again so we can see everything. I'm going to click off. You always want to go in and save your project. So go to File, and you want to click Save As. And this will, you probably want to put it in the folder that you've been working in. So I'm going to find it. And most of the time you do have to find these files, otherwise it won't really add it to where you want it to go. And I want to place it in right outside this folder, the main folder I've got here. So I'm just going to call it headphones and just call it TX and then 01. It'll remember, it'll bring the file in, it'll bring the model in and all the textures that you used on it. So you don't have to start from scratch every time. Okay, so you save that. All right, so I'm gonna move that up a little bit closer so I can see. I really don't need this anymore, so I'm gonna open this up a little bit more. And now we're ready to export to texture. So you go to File, Export Textures. Here you do the same thing. You wanna go to PBR Metallic Roughness like what I have in here. Everything else looks good. You want to tell it where to go. This is a big issue with students, that you need to go in here and tell it where you want to place it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place it into my folder. Okay. It could be on your hard drive, or it could be on your external drive. But you're going to find your folder. You have to create a new project folder with the source images folder and the scenes folder and all that. Otherwise it won't work. So I'm going to double click on this, and I want it to go into my source images folder, so open that up. I've got a lot of files in here, but I'm just going to click on that, and it's going to place all of my files. So if I know where it's going to be added, I know it's going to write everything to this folder. It needs to be PBR Metallic Roughness, and you need to go and make sure everything shows up here, which it does. We're going to go to Output Templates. This one's easy. Just do the same thing. PBR Metallic Roughness. We're going to keep that same thing. In here, we don't need to have the emissive. That's a glow map. We don't need that, so click that off. We also don't need a height map. We can click that off. Okay? We're just going to be using a base color, roughness, metallic, and normal. Okay, and then we're going to go to list of exports. It doesn't update. It still has the emissive and height map in there. But what if I go back to settings and go back to list of exports, it then brings it down to 4 instead of 6. Okay, that'll save you some room. But you can see all the textures that it is creating. So this is really huge. This is going to be a big file, because I think each one of these at 2040 by 2040, it is 24 megabytes. And then times whatever I have, 14 times 4. So that adds up pretty quick. So just realize that you're going to be using a lot of memory on your hard drive. Or, yeah, hard drive space. So output looks good. Everything looks good. PNG. Then export. That's all you have to do. It's going to do all the work for you, depending on how fast your computer is. And 2048 maps, it does pretty quick job of those. If you see a green, basically successfully exported all these maps, you're good. just close. Again, you might want to save your work again, okay? And then you don't have to export this model out or anything. And just make sure you save the scene like you did. And then you can close. I'm just going to minimize right now. Now we're back into Maya. So the first thing I want to do is I want to right click over this, go to assign new material. This will start me from square one. We're going to use an Arnold shader, AI standard surface, so click on that. You're going to rename this something you can understand. Okay, could be headphones, whatever, your clothing or character or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it TX. Okay, and there it is. Oops, I named the wrong thing. Let's just call this TX1 because it's not going to let me name it the same thing. Alright, so what do we have here? We've got our base color, so let's kind of move this over a little bit so we can see that a little bit better. But we've got our color. That's where our color map goes. Our metalness, we'll have to go in here and add the metalness. There's nothing you really have to do in here except for one thing, hit the 6 key. The 6 key goes, it opens texturing up, okay? So hit the 6 key, and we're going to start adding the maps. And you just have to do one map. The rest of them, well, that's the beauty of Udemy Tiles. You're thinking, man, I got to load up 14 times 4? No, you just load the very first one up, and it will propagate. It'll propagate over the entire model. If you did this right, it should work. So I'm going to go into color, click on the color attribute, click on 2D textures, file, and then file type to off. And then you find your you can find your folder. You may need to find it in here, but it should show up. And I think that's it right here. Yeah, there it is. I found it. So here it is, headphones new, UV. I remember naming it, and that looks correct. So I'm just going to click on the very first one, 1001, base color. Click open. With the base color, okay, it's going to look like, oh my God, it's not working. That's okay. So you're going to scroll down just a little bit. You're going to click on tiling mode. See, this is where it doesn't understand. You use Udemy Tiles, but you're not telling it it's using Udemy Tiles. So you have to click on Udemy tiling, UV tiling mode, go from off, click on it, and go to Udemy. Now all of a sudden it does something strange here. Nothing's showing up. Just click on generate preview. Okay. Boom. Everything should show up if you did it properly. Okay. So that's a good sign. If it doesn't do that, then you might want to go back and watch the video again and make sure you're selecting all the attributes I did in Substance Painter and you got everything set up properly in Maya. Okay. So sRGB for color space here, nothing else we need to do. I'm going to click on this guy right here. I'm circling it with the little box with the arrow going out. This is how I get back to my settings. Now we're going to go to next to metalness, click on that attribute, 2D textures, file, quadratic to off, click on the file. Again, it's going to go right back where I want it to go. Of course, I got to scroll down, and again, I'm just going to start loading these up. Okay, so metallic goes with metallic. So I'm going to click on that, open that up, and the same thing. You scroll down, UV tiling mode, click on that, Udemy, and then generate preview. This is going to load the metallic map up. Now it looks like nothing's happened because the color space for a metallic map has to be raw. So click on that and go to raw. Okay. I'm using Maya 2024, and you're going to get a kind of a warning saying texture space, blah, blah. Just ignore it. and scroll down, go to alpha is luminance. Now you have to click that on for you to see that, otherwise it'll just keep black. It'll just stay black, okay? So if you miss anything in here and it doesn't work, it's because you gotta be specific on what you're selecting. So raw for color space, and alpha is luminance for the metallic map. Okay, I'm just gonna go back out here. Everything looks good. Okay, and the next one is roughness. So you find your roughness channel, you click on that, and 2D textures, file, same thing. Go to from quadratic to off and click on the file. Scroll down here, easy to find now. We're just finding the 1001. So we got the base color, we got the metallic, now we got the roughness. So click on that. And this one's the same thing. UV tiling mode to be Unimari. You got to do that. Click generate preview. You got to do that. And you got to go in color space and make sure it's at raw. And in this one, it's the same thing. Click on alpha is luminous. You're going to get this crazy warning again. Just ignore it. All right. So now I'm going to go back out again. We got one more to do. This one's my favorite one. It gives you depth. So we want bump mapping. So under geometry, next to bump mapping, click on the option here. 2D texture, file. Here's a little different stuff here going on. This looks different. So use as, click from bump, go to tangent space normals, not object. That won't work. Tangent space normals. Next to bump value, click on the arrow. And then we're back where we are comfortable. Go into quadratic off. And then find your, you guessed it, your normal map for 1001. Click on normal, click open, and I do the same thing, UV tiling to Unimari, click generate preview, and this one needs to be raw, okay? It's going to give me the same little warning. Scroll down and make sure you turn alpha is luminance is off for this to work, okay? That needs to be turned off. Okay, everything looks good. Let's say you don't see this anymore. Okay, let's say you don't see your the textures anymore. Okay, make sure you got the 6 key, because if you hit the 5 key, nothing looks textured. So 6 key for texture. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to make sure that, let's say you save it and you don't have your textures in the source images folder. Every time you bring this to a different spot or a different place, it will not know where your textures are. They always have to be stored in the source images folder. You always have to make and create a project folder. Okay? That means you go into file, you go into project window, and you create a new project. This will create all the folders you need. All you have to do is take your scenes, your MB files, put them in the scenes folder, take all your textures and put them in the textures folder, or the source images folder, and basically your everything else, images, that's where your renders go. So you got to have those folders with your source images. Your textures are going to go in there. So mine's going to be searching these folders, especially for textures. Okay. Now you may still open this up and it may turn black, or nothing shows up, even if you hit the 6 key. So what you want to do there is you want to go into renderer in your viewport render, viewport 2, open that up, and scroll down to where you see, let's see here, under maximum texture resolution clamping, you want to click generate all UV tile preview textures. And this is going to refresh everything. Okay? You don't have to go back in there and go and add these to these. You just might need to go click on the object and refresh. So again, that's renderer, viewport 2, and regenerate all UV tile preview textures. Okay? Give it a chance to load all those up, especially if it's a big file. And that's it. I don't know. I'm not going to go through lighting and everything, but Your lighting makes a big difference. So if you do have shiny metal reflective objects, you need to have an HDRI image, high dynamic range image. So that image will be fit on your cylinder, not a cylinder, but a sky dome. I think I have one. There we go. So that's what it kind of looks like. And you're going to want to go to HDR Haven and find an HDR image. It has to be HDR. Should have an HDR for it to work. And then you can render. So you're going to have to go into Arnold Render. Okay. And you want to start off, just the default settings are fine. You know, even the lowest resolution is fine. And you're going to need to have a light source. And I would recommend a directional light. So you can go to create lights and directional light here. And you want to place that light to where it's pointing in the same kind of direction that you have here with your light. I mean, obviously this image has the sun, but we want to simulate that same sun. And sometimes I've got to take the light source, if I can get it, and scale it up and try to match, go outside of the dome here, and try to match that up with the light. Okay, so I didn't do a good job with that, so I'm going to rotate that around, rotate this down a little bit, and just kind of focus on getting that set up properly. You can see that I'm now showing that that light source is coming in from that direction. Okay. All right. You can also, and that's where you want to kind of, you know, set your headphones up to where the light is showing. Then you do your first render and see how it goes. Oh, the first run through is going to take a lot longer because it's changing all your textures to TX files. That's what Arnold loves to see. So give it some time. It's going to take a little time, so I'm going to hit the F9. Oh, it's starting to come through, but I'll hit F9. Oh, wow, that was quick. So once it got going, I've got a RTX 2080. It's an older video card, but that looks pretty good actually. Everything shows up real nice. Yep, looks good. I can see reflections in there in the reflective areas. And then next time you render is going to be way faster. So let me zoom in on some parts here. And you can probably see the reflection, and that's what you need from an HDR image. So get a little closer, and it should be a little faster rendering. And I'm going to click on Start IPR. There we go. That looks good. And then when you're rendering your stuff, you want to go to 1:1 just to make sure that your image. Now, HD 540 is not a good resolution, so we're going to go into a higher resolution. Whatever resolution I want you to go to, make sure you have that in. Sometimes I say 2K. I'd like to see a 2K. Of course, that's in here too as well. You can go 2K square if you want to. So sometimes I do a 4K square. That's really high resolution. That's going to take a long time to render, but usually it's HD 1080 or it is 2K. Okay. I'm going to do HD 1080. This will give us the biggest image that we need. So I'm going to get this, and I'm going to select I want to frame this up real nice. So I'm going to click on the mask and the gate, and that way I can kind of get that centered. And you probably want to do that too when you're kind of setting up your character. Okay. Don't forget about 3-point lighting. If I really want this to look really super nice, I probably want to do 3-point lighting, and just so we don't have any real dark shadows in here. But let's take a look at what we have and see how it goes. Click on render again. Of course, we have to refresh the render. It's not going to start right away. Click on that, And we're going to do 1:1 once it's all rendered. I'm going to click 1:1 ratio. Okay, it should be done. And there it is, 1:1. And my screen just isn't big enough, so I'm going to just kind of click on it and zoom out a little bit. So I'm just zooming out. There we go. And you can see it looks pretty good, actually. I'm not crazy about that, but anyway, you know, you can see the leather in here. You can see the really cool details in there. All the really cool stuff in here that we want to see, it is there. Okay. Then the other side will probably be dark, or be darker. That's where the shadows are. So I'm going to go ahead and render that. Render, click on that, and render the other side. You can see that the lighting is off. If you do that and you want to render to the other side, this is really poor lighting. You want to rotate everything around to make sure that this side looks good if you're going to give me a render there too. If you have a back perspective that you're rendering, make sure you move the lighting around. It's not that hard. Either you can move your model around, that'd be easier. So if I want to just rotate this model around to show off the back, zoom in a little bit, and just render it, that's what I want to see. And let's go ahead and re-render that real quick. But now the lighting is showing, and I can see perfectly all the detail that I have. And there's some nice shadows right here. That looks good. Just rotate your model around. Don't rotate your camera around, because you're going to get dark spots in your images. Nobody wants to see that, especially on your character. You spent so much time. So you can see that I'm moving the camera around. That's the first thing we want to do, but really you don't want to do that. Okay. So anyway, rotate the camera so it's facing the direction of the light. I'm going to turn that, make sure that light's a little bit smaller so we can see it. And that'll kind of tell us where our lighting angle is. Again, you just got to think, you can do this for all your clothes, keep them separate, which is fine with me. Use Unum tiles for each object. Normally I don't do that. I usually do Unum tiles for just the separate assets, so they can keep them separated. And then the clothing and the character itself, except for the hair, is all in one UV map. So if you have any questions, let me know. Send me an email. But hopefully this clarifies how to do this properly. Okay. HDR image. Let's look at that real quick. This is what I got set up for that. I got intensity of 0.5, resolution 1000, exposure 0.5. So this is pretty low. Cast shadows, everything. I don't see anything. Volume shadows, I changed that from 1 to 2. And the camera is 000. Okay. So the light itself, the directional light, is 0.8 intensity. And under Arnold, you can see I'm using a color temperature. This gives me the ability to create a nice ambiance. 6000 is a warm color. 5500 is even warmer. Don't go much less than that or more than that. Exposure 0.8. Samples, I've got set at 2 for volume samples. That gives us nicer shadows. Everything else looks good. It's pretty simple. It gives you a pretty good, result. All right, good luck with everything, and hope you get everything turned in. Of course, this is the upper body this week, so hopefully that will solve your issues, okay? Now, if there are things that are not being, like, if Substance Painter won't open it, there's a couple things you can do. You can smooth your object with an iteration of 2, okay, if you haven't done that. You don't want to do low poly. You want to do medium poly, right? So we all know that. So subdivision level of 2 or 1, whatever. But you want to subdivide it. That will usually fix all your modeling issues, most of them anyway. So Substance Painter is really particular about non-manifold geometry. So usually when you do smooth it, it does fix it. If not, you have to go in there and do a cleanup. You can go into Mesh and go to Cleanup, and you can scroll down to Lamina, non-manifold geometry, geometry only, and Cleanup. So that should clean it up. If not, then you're going to want to probably triangulate it. It's not going to hurt anything. Mesh, triangulate, and then send it out. So there's lots of things you can do. Okay? All right, that's it for now. And good luck with this week's assignment of UV, or texturing your objects and getting the textures into Maya and then getting an HDR image in. Okay, and then your directional light, get your lighting looking good. Make sure I can see it, it's not too dark and not blown out, not too bright. And everything should work. All right, I'll see you in the next video.